John, you're on mute.
Aha, thank you.
Hi, everyone. We're just going to give a minute or two for everyone to arrive. I'm not sure. I have allowed everyone to use microphones, so you can feel free to unmute during the webinar if you have a question. John's also going to be monitoring the Q&A, so if you do have a question, you can pop it into chat or the Q&A, and we'll get you reactions. Everybody should be able to see my screen. Oh, there we go. Shall we get started? What do you think, John?
Yeah, let's get going. I think we'll have people join maybe as we go.
Okay. So welcome to SharePoint Adoption Journey for Project-Based Organizations. I think John's going to do a bit of an introduction here.
Yeah. Thanks, Tamara. So I was going to introduce myself. My name is John Iwanis. I'm the Director of Sales here at Spot Solutions. Excited to have everybody join us today for this particular webinar that we're doing on SharePoint adoption for project-based organizations. We're lucky to have a great team with us today. So we're going to have Tamara, our SharePoint project manager, business analyst, and we also have Jessica along with us with her skills when it comes to Power Platform and SharePoint development. So yeah, I'm excited to have everyone join us today, and I think it's going to be helpful when it comes to kind of encapsulating project organizations, project-based organizations, and that covers, quite a few different types of industries. So I think you'll get quite a bit out of this.
Thanks, John. So I'm really excited to be here with you guys today. We're going to have some slides, so there's some presentation, but we're actually going to do some in-system demos showing you some of the solutions that we've done as we go through. So our job worth doing is worth doing together. So SharePoint Online is a modern digital workspace that helps connect our organizations and employees. So why adopt SharePoint Online as a platform? Your organization recognizes a need to modernize collaboration and business processes. It's a fully mobile-enabled platform that ensures access anytime, anywhere, and it allows on-site employees and those in remote locations or traveling to stay connected throughout the life of a project. It allows for progressive implementations of tools and features over time. You can continue to meet your needs, you can have continuous improvement, but you don't have to do everything all at once. In some platforms, it's kind of all or nothing. Here, you actually have the opportunity to move through on a bespoke platform that meets your needs. So, what is sort of a typical adoption journey for SharePoint Online in a project-based organization? So we identify a need for more modern collaboration. We're having trouble with paper forms coming from site or from the project to the office. We're having challenges communicating, collaborating. We want to get into the 21st century. So first, we're going to develop a baseline SharePoint environment. This is usually a single hub for the organization as a landing page for all employees, and one or two sites for departments or groups that need to have space to collaborate. Often in that baseline implementation, you'll have things like baseline HR forms and tools, expense forms, things like that available at the homepage, organizational news, branding standards, and then maybe you've got a finance site or an operations site where you can start to share content. So as we start monitoring collaboration and we understand better what we want to add to the baseline or how that baseline is meeting our needs, we start to develop a future state of what we'd like to see. And teams start identifying the enhancements and the features that they want incorporated into the environment. New sites that we want to develop, new tools like Microsoft Stream, Microsoft Planner that can be for no cost integrated fully into your SharePoint environment. And Planner's like a Kanban tool. So it's an easy one to use for that sort of thing and kind of builds that up. So we start to identify and incorporate some of those pieces. And then we start automating, implementing automation of business process and mobile applications to make it even easier for our teams to work. Maybe we start to have approval processes built in automatically and tracked through automation using the Power Platform. And we have mobile apps for expense reimbursement or other types of tools and abilities. And then we gain a general comfort working in the environment across the organization. We start to feel comfortable about it. And as we get comfortable, we can start to think about what our next phases or steps might be. And we have a continuous improvement of the environment, automations and collaborations. We start this cycle of trying out new things, starting slow. It's not overnight. It takes time to build up a capacity, a comfort, and an interest in working with it. But the rewards of going through that process and adopting it are tremendous. And you get really high performing teams that have the information that they need right at their fingertips instead of, somewhere else. So every time we talk about significant change, especially in a project driven organization, it can be really scary for the people who work with us because everything in a project is about the process. You kind of have a standard way of doing things. It's generally you want it to be repeatable. But it can be hard to change when you're used to doing it some way. So typically when we're looking at an adoption, we want to take a change management approach, starting with awareness. Make sure people in the organization understand why we're moving to a new system, that it's going to happen, and that it's got a reason. We need to modernize. We need to get into a place where we can be more connected. Provide a sneak peek at the functionality to get a sense of desire, to make people want to see and use the system. So this is in those early stages when you're starting to build it. In a lot of cases, people have done things like have an intranet naming competition. They've done a monthly feature update. They've shown a little bit about what somebody's going to get by going to this new system. So build a desire for them to want it so that they're less resistant to the change. Give them knowledge. Make them understand how the system is being implemented, why it's being implemented in this way, and how they're going to be able to use that to improve their lives. So sharing with the finance department, for example, that in this new way, timesheets from site can be uploaded to SharePoint, automatically notify the payroll clerk that the timesheets for a crew are ready. They can process those timesheets, tick that they've been processed, and go through that process in a much faster, easier way. So showing them how some of these things are going to make their day-to-day work easier or more efficient or more effective. And then give them the ability, provide training and support to users so that they're comfortable and confident in the system. Anytime you change to a new system, it's going to take people a little while before they get fully as proficient with it as they were with whatever system they had been using in the past. So by providing some training and giving support in the form of videos, user guides, or other tools, you give people the ability to feel like they're able to do it. Nobody wants to go to work and feel foolish, right? Nobody wants to feel like they don't know how to do their job. And so giving them more tools and making sure they feel supported, not foolish when they forget something in those early days, is going to really, really help with adoption. And finally, reinforcement. Follow up regularly. have regular, quarterly updates or training sessions, or do other types of things like that, that can help to give people a sense of real collaboration and ownership of the platform that you're in. And then, once you've kind of done that, it becomes a different sort of space in terms of what they're looking at and where they want to be. So before we get into the system demo, I actually want to hand over for the next couple minutes to Jessica, and she's going to talk about a couple slides around Power Platform and how that works. And then we're going to take a look at some solutions in the system. So Jessica, over to you.
I just want to make sure that everybody can hear me.
I can hear you.
Yeah, I just switched computer. For some reason, my other computer was turned off during the presentation. Gotcha. So I'm connecting the mouse here to my computer. Okay. On time. Sorry about that.
All good.
So yeah, what I want to show you guys is, as a developer, sometimes I work with users that want to automate the process for projects, right? So I have 2 or 3 cases to show. Basically, those are apps project related to that you can use for your own company as an idea. The first one is called the Statement Onboarding Checklist. So that app was actually, I have an Excel here, but I was going to open it from my other computer, but I just want to explain because I don't have it here. So basically what they have is Excel sheet where they were following projects. So basically one sheet was one project, and then you cannot see it too much on the left side, but they have stages where for each stages you have to complete certain actions as a PM. So to follow project, the project related is one sheet. So the sheet is like project A, and then you have the stages like I'm going to show you a little bit in here on the right side. I have a video where I record how the app kind of behaved for that project, but they have everything using Excel. So the main issue here was to follow what the project is, like this, the current status, to follow the action tracking. So they were assigning tasks to other people to complete certain things for the project. So they couldn't receive notification when someone completed. So they weren't updating the sheet. So they came to me, they say, Jessica, how can we improve it? And say, okay, let's use Power Up for it. So let's move whatever you have in your Excel sheet and into Power Up. So now we can automate things. So you can have your projects in the app, but also you can follow with, you can create a Power Automate, so you can follow actions depending on each stages in the project. So basically, I recorded a screen yesterday from navigation of that app. So I'm gonna just play it if that works. Are you sharing, Tamara? Sorry, I forgot you're sharing.
Oh, yes.
Can you click the video? Just click the image. I think it will play. Yeah, yeah. So basically, this is the main page where they see all projects. So they can search by project in the search box, or you can also, because you're going to have multiple projects, so you're going to be hard to find it. So they can search for it, or I think it stopped the video. Okay. So you can search for project, or you can see there on the top part, you can also filter by project type. In this case, they have 2 types of projects, and depending on the type of project, it will show the stages depending on that that type. So you can filter by type, and I'm not sure if the video is moving. Now it is. Okay. Yeah. So basically it's showing like you can see all projects here. You can filter by, if you don't filter for anything, you will see all the project related, the type of project, two different types in this case. And then it will filter by that. And then you can just go and do 2 filters in one. So it's a ROS type and planning. There is nothing there, but you can just interact with the filter. So they can find the project easily. Okay, once you select one project, and I think that's my next part in the video, you can see the detail of the project, like what is the project name, the project type, the current stage is planning. So they that you can modify, you can remove the project, and then you can see the tasks associated to it. So they do have certain tasks that are like automatically populated because the tasks are always the same depending on the stages. So they can, I try to recreate the same as they have in Excel. For example, the tab part when you can search from each different stages, so different actions depending on each stages. So you cannot continue to the planning action until you complete the requirement gathering action. So basically there is certain validation here. Only if the actions are complete, you can move to the next stage. So we validate that. So you can move around and can say, okay, now the project is in planning. So the planning actions, I think one thing that I didn't record it here is if you actually click in the action itself, like the one of the actions, you can see the detail, like who is the PM, what is the task assigned to, and you can see here in the summary that those tasks are completed. So you can navigate through this app and see which is the current status. Each one of the activities is being completed or not. Once it's completed, the project will be in closing stages. And every time something is assigned or a new task or something is completed, the PM was receiving a notification. So the PM will always be on track of what is going on in the project. So this is a kind of project where they already predefine the actions. Okay, I think it's playing again, but you can see here when you move it from stages, one stages to the other, you can see all the actions it was completed or not. And then if it's blank, it's because it's still in planning. So there is no action related to that stages yet. And then the notification part is basically whenever you complete something, whenever you create a new project, they will receive a notification depending on what they need to receive as a notification, right? So it's the PM, it's the people who was assigned to the task, so go on. So you can navigate easily. I make it look a little bit similar to whatever they have, so the Excel, but now they can have it in an app and they can automate it. So all the project related, so basically this app is whenever the activities or the project that you have to follow are always the same. In this case, the activities was always the same depending on the stages. Next one is something similar. Yeah, I think I finished the video. So the next one is something similar. So it's another app. It's in Spanish, this one, because I built it for people in Chile. But don't play it again for now. Let me explain a little bit tomorrow. Thank you. So this one is the same idea. The difference between the first one and the second one, this is for phone, mobile, so many people can just follow project whenever they are, like, you don't have to be in the office, or like the other as well, but it was more computer size. This one is basically the same idea, but the difference between this one and the one that I showed previously is the PM or the project manager, or like they have a task assigned to a parent. So it can be project, and the project you assign tasks, so they're not predefined. So whenever you need to do that, you can create tasks and relate those tasks to the parent. So you can create as many tasks as you want, and then you can assign those tasks to certain users, or for you to complete, it doesn't matter, but you create it. So it's not out to populate those tasks for you. Okay, so if you play the app, Tamara, please. So here is basically the same, navigating to every single, this is for operational events. So they have maintenance, you can see all the records are there, and you can also apply security, like if you don't want to see all records, or like you as an admin want to see every single record, you can just apply security. In this case, this is not. So when you select one item, I will call it item, in here is in Spanish, but you can say add new action or view actions. So you can add new action depending on the parent. So it can be project, it can be anything. So you add actions, you assign this action, and then you can create more, or you can view actions as associated to that. So in this case, for maintenance, they already have one action that is associated to it. So you can edit the main project, or you can add more actions, and then, or you can view all actions related to that. So it will show up in the screen here. If I add a new one, it will show up there. So two different ways to approach, and it can be project related, because you can normally I will say normally you create actions depending on a project. So you can assign it, you can follow up, you can get the notifications up. This one is more like a bonus. It's not an app that I made, but it's something that you can find in Power App as a template. Power App has templates that that are ready to use. And this can be like also a good idea for project related. This is the budget tracker. Can you play the video? It's short, this one, because it's basically a template that you can use. But you can, for example, you have budget for your project. So you have the app here that is show all the budgets for each one of the projects. And then you can create new ones. I think I'm navigating right now. Yeah, so you can see edits. You can view it, or you can create new ones. So you can create new one, new budget, title for, let's say, project 1. The budget for that project is, I think I put 4,000 there. Click save, and now it show up in my budget tracker. I can now, I haven't spent any money on my project, so they can add expenses. So that will do the math and then say, okay, for this project you have certain money and this is the remaining. So it is something super simple that is basically built for you, so you can just start using it, or you can just say, actually this looks good, but I want to add more. So you can always customize it. You can always say, okay, that works for me in 50% of the time, but I want to add like more things, like not just expenses. I want to add, I don't know, invoices or whatever, or like you want to add more information to the project, so you can follow the project and follow the budget in the same app. So those are the things that I want to show. I'm not sure if I'm going to have questions at the end or now, but those are basically apps that like we said, first two, this is a bonus, that I worked before for different projects that I had before.
Does anybody have any questions that they want to ask, or any scenarios they'd like to know a bit more about? Okay. Thank you, Jessica.
Right.
So looking at the SharePoint online solutions demo. So now we're going to take a look. Jessica was great at showing us some of the apps that Power Platform can provide. And one of the things I want to note about those apps is that especially the ones that are designed in a computer layout, they can actually be embedded right on your SharePoint site. So users could come to a site page and they could use that app, whether it's the budget app or any of the apps that they might want to use. So let's take a look at some demo content. So I'm going to start by looking here at this demo site, Spot On Communications. We're talking about project-driven organizations, and I'm going to show you a number of different examples of solutions that have been designed. So one of them this is meant to be sort of a hub site. So it's that main landing page for your people. And what we have here is an operations manual. The operations manual breaks our content down by department and also by the kind of document it is. Is it a procedure, a process, or a quick reference guide? One of the fun things that we've done here within this document library is we've set the document number to be unique. So most of the time, you don't want to have a unique value in metadata because it can only be used once. But in something like an operations manual, this becomes really important. I just say this is enforcing a unique value. If I try to upload a document here and I use the same document number, it will actually prevent the upload and tell me that document number is already in use. That lets me know I need to actually put a different unique identifier, especially if I'm in an organization that is subject to any of the sort of ISO or other regulatory requirements around tracking procedures, processes, etc. This also gives me the unique ability to say who is a primary content owner. So for example, if I pick myself here, I'll filter out that I'm listed as the primary content owner of these specific procedures or processes within. That allows me to send workflows, or it allows a user to click on my name and say, hey, I actually want to talk to you about this process. So for example, if I pick one and there's Ivy is the responsible person for monthly BU reporting, if I click on her name, I can click send an email and it will actually let me just immediately start talking to her. I can also, if you're using Microsoft Teams or Zoom, I can actually chat directly with her. Typically, it will use whatever your default internal chat program is. I haven't tested it on anything but Zoom and Microsoft Teams, but it worked for both of those. And then I've got a responsible as well. This allows us to actually take some of the types of automation and actually have an approval process for changes, for requests to change. And in this case, I basically have in my document library, not only who's the owner and who's responsible, but I also have links to work instructions. If there was a form associated with this, I would have a link to the form. So it allows me to create a full service operations manual right here. Now, this is a demo manual, but we just recently, for one of our clients, implemented something very similar to this. What they did is they had a working documents library where the team actually worked on Word documents for processes, procedures, work instructions, etc. And once they were ready, they actually initiated a workflow on that Word document. And the Word document first went to peer review, and the reviewers either said, yes, this is good, or we need to have some changes. Once the peer review was completed and accepted, it went to the actual approver of the content, the department head, to look at it and say, okay, yes, I'm good with this. Once they actually approve that, all approvals throughout the process were tracked for auditability purposes, and the workflow then converted the Word document into a PDF and put that PDF into a public-facing document library, their operations manual, and applied a unique document number and all of the appropriate metadata that they had assigned in working documents to the PDF inside the new environment. This allowed them to reduce the amount of time it took for them to collaborate because they could collaborate together on the Word document, and also allowed them a really good auditable process to see the approvals and to publish the file finally and reduce their manual involvement in that process. So that's an example of one of these types of things. An additional example is something like a contracts library. When you are a project-driven organization, a lot of your work depends on the contracts that you're doing and the value of those contracts. Some contracts may be contracts where you are hiring somebody else to come in and work with you as a sub-trade, as a consultant, or whatever. Others are contracts that you've gotten from others for an RFP that you've submitted or a project that you've been hired for. This contracts library allows someone to upload the initial contract, and based on the value of the contract, it determines how many approvals are required for that contract. So when you upload the contract, if it's under $25,000, it doesn't need approval. It just sends a notification to a group and says this contract has been approved. And to do that, I would just select it, go to automate, and set my contract review and approval. And when I set up my contract review and approval, it's going to have me run that. Now you can make a workflow automated, like as soon as I upload it or as soon as a particular value changes within my item, I can change that. Or you can just go, okay, run the flow. Now, this one is probably going to have problems because it doesn't have values. So I could come in and I could actually edit that and say, okay, this one's worth $15,000 and it's with and fill out any of the information, give it a start date in April and an end date in June. And then I hit save. So now when this goes through, it's actually going to be able to follow the process and I can automate that and restart the flow. If the value was over 25,000, then it needs to go to 2 stages of approval. The first stage of approval and then the CEO approval for a contract over a certain amount. And in this way, we can actually set those approval levels in different ways. We have a complete track. In this case, once an item is approved, the system will actually, and here's my notice. Hey, this has been submitted for a contract review. It was requested by me. This is obviously a demo, so it's only going to show me the demo information. And this was started before I filled out the metadata, so it's showing me what I would normally see, which would be whatever metadata was associated with it. Now, I also have this in Microsoft Teams. So the approval tool works in both of these. So I can see the approval here in Power Automate through my Outlook email, or I can see it in my approvals within Teams. And I have the same abilities in both. If I complete the review, because I'm just the review stage here, I can say review completed and it will ask me to provide comments. Once I submit that, it actually physically changes my email. So this becomes a record of what I have done. I can track that. It's got when did I respond and what were my comments, and I can file that under the project. Now you'll notice that that changed in Teams as well. The review is complete. Here's the information. I responded. And I can save that as a PDF, again, to add to my SharePoint files or wherever I want. And so that went through that stage. And because it was less than 25,000, all I needed was the review complete. I didn't need the second stage approval. So it integrates with whatever systems you're using, and it recognizes when you've completed it in Teams or when you've completed it in Outlook. So you don't have to do it in either. You can also complete approvals in Power Automate, but we're not going to look at that for today because that gets a little bit more complicated. So that's an example of a contracts library. Another example that can be really important for organizations that are safety oriented or do projects where safety is a thing is incident reporting. So in this case, this is an example of a sample incident reporting system that I did for an organization as a demo for an organization that runs railroads. And we ended up building a more detailed system for them, but we started with this sort of thing is what's the name of the incident? And they might say it's a derailment, it's a stall, it's whatever it is. And then what type? Is it a first aid, medical aid, lost time, low potential near miss, high potential near miss? So this one I might say, and we're going to say tree on tracks is a high potential near miss. Is this reportable to any government? Yes. If it's reportable, list the agency. Did we call first responders? And if so, what first responders did we call? So maybe we just needed to go ahead and get rid of the tree, but you'll notice here I can say, well, we called fire and police. We needed both of them. When did the incident occur? And what time? Who was it reported to? Who was it reported by? And when is the review? So the due date in this case is the incident review. So the incident review is going to be due by noon there. And what zone in this case, because they have different rail, was that in? And so putting that in gives us this information. And if the due date is past, then it basically comes back and says, hey, this is past due, it's red, we need to do something about it. This then gets connected to Power BI, and Power BI starts to give us a visualization of trending, including a map that shows where the locations of these incidents are happening, where the frequent incidents happen, and I can use it to see what kind of incidents are happening more frequently, etc., and so on, who's called, etc. Before I move on to showing you some project management tools, does anybody have questions about some of these types of things that I've showed you? And I guess I'll show you a sample Power BI as well, just so you can kind of see how that information can be connected. And Power BI is amazing. It can connect to SharePoint lists, SharePoint libraries, Excel. You can connect multiple sources of information and aggregate them together for your visualization. So this is a revenue and opportunities report. It's fully interactive. So if I click on anything, it will actually change everything to filter it out based on, in this case, the revenue in the East. So I'll start to see what the opportunity looks like there. Where are we at in Central? Where are we at in West? So I can actually see all these different things. Everything changes, and I can interact with the report fully. So depending on what you're doing or how you're doing it, you can actually see. And like I said, we can use this to take a look at our project status. Are we on time, behind, etc. If we hook it up to our project trending, we can use it for safety information. We can pretty much use Power BI to visualize anything that you might report on, but you can embed it right here on your SharePoint site for everyone to work with and interact with. So it gives you a lot more on that. Any questions around this? Yes, a recording will be provided after so that it can be provided to your teams, absolutely. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the project management process. So here I've got an example, and I'm going to show you a real one, but first I want to play a bit. Oh, go ahead, Tamika, Tamala. I see your hand up.
Sorry, hi. Yeah, I just wanted to ask, for the app that Jessica made, is this something that you can deploy for, like, imagine an organization that has like 1,000 projects, just for instance, is this something that can be deployed for all? Is this something that can be automatically, like, once you create a project, it just sets that up for that project, and then for each one, it just, does that happen? Is that a possibility?
Go
Okay.
ahead, Jessica.
Yeah. So you say automatically create a project through the app and show up in the app, or what is the question about?
Yeah, when you create, like, so imagine you have multiple departments, and then you have multiple, like, maybe project sites based on the departments, and someone creates, maybe a new project is going to start, does the app, or can the app be set up such that it just gets deployed for every project that gets created?
Yeah, you can use the same app, but you can actually record in different departments. You have different SharePoint site for different departments, and you want to divide like the projects in each one. You can set up the app to have only one, or you can have multiple app by department so they can see only their own projects. Yeah, everything is possible. You just have to set up like what do you want in your app, and you can totally do it depending on your needs. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So for example, if the app Jessica got was actually connected in some way to the project dashboard, which I created here, then when you add a new project name, that could add the project to the app using the template, right? So there's different ways that you could do this. So this is an example of a dashboard for a project, all kinds of information that we might collect about a project. What's the project name? What's the description of the project? What's its status? Start date, summary of work, how many hours are we expected to work? We can fill out who's the project manager, who's the account manager, and then we can start tracking the activities in the project. Have we done project kickoff? Have we done initiation? This is where it gets interesting again with automation. So for example, if I had a different group of people doing different tasks within the project, I could say, okay, well, once I've finished kickoff and initiation, set up a task to the business. So the project manager does these two, and now send a task to my business analyst to say, okay, initiation has been done. You need to start doing the requirements design. So you need to set up your elucidation sessions. You need to start your documentation. When that's been signed off, it goes, yes, we maybe go, oh, we want to do, in our organization, we do a mid-project check-in. Our CEO meets with the client just to say, hey, I hope the project team is meeting all your needs. How are things going? Is there anything that you want us to see? So you can actually have a workflow that is triggered each time something happens within the same item. And so we go through all of our various items. Are these people a promoter? What kind of contract is it? And I've got this dashboard where I can see all the information about a client. So I'm going to just really briefly, and we're not going to look too deep because this is live data, but this is our Spot Solutions project site. And I've got a dashboard here that contains all of this information from our project, who's our client, all the information that we need. This dashboard impacts our weekly reporting. So on a weekly basis, we report based on the active projects that we have, and we review what kind of activities have happened this week, where we're at, are we on budget, are there any challenges? And we also track maintenance projects on a weekly basis. So we track for them a little bit different. What are the milestones? What are our statuses, etc. And then separately from that, we track milestones by client, and each week we take a look at that. In addition to doing these kinds of things, we actually create a SharePoint site for each client, for each project that we're actively working on. And in some cases, we might have multiple projects for the same client, and they each have their own site that we share with our client and provide them with the ability to come in to that project site and share information, get project status reports, and do that automatically. One of the really amazing things about a SharePoint environment is that it does allow you to configure sites for true external sharing. That means if you've got a lot of tradespeople within your group, I have one client that's a construction firm that has a number of sub-trades, and we created a single site that was their craft portal for craft employees, and they basically can access it from their personal or their contractor email address instead of having to be given credentials for my client. But they can't access any other part of their SharePoint site. They only have access to that contract employee area. So you can do a lot of things like that. And so, like I say, I've got sort of project weekly reports where I can actually track, okay, how many hours in the timesheet system, how many hours was our budget, pardon me, based on our Gantt chart, what's the percentage of work that's been complete. These fields will actually create a calculated field. You don't see it in the form because I can't edit it. That will tell me what my current earned value for that project is based on actual hours versus budgeted hours. And that'll let me know if, based on the percent complete, I'm a little bit behind schedule, or am I a little bit ahead of schedule, or am I right on schedule, typically to a margin. And then we've got, here are all of the stages of our project. So we can leverage these kinds of tools to actually manage a project through its life cycle. And again, we can actually connect that to other services, from workflows to Power BI. If we want to sort of start tracking our trending and KPIs on how well we're doing on our budget by projects, et cetera, and so on, which at Spot we do actually do that. We actually get the opportunity to see all of that information in different ways. We also, just for fun, actually have the ability, and sometimes we do this on project sites, to actually have start dates and countdowns that are telling us when something is about to come into play. Now, I have another component that I want to share with you guys, but before I do, does anybody have any questions about what I've shown you so far? Okay. So what I want to show you, and I'm just going to get there first because this is a live tool, but I want to show you an example of a project-based organization safety system. So in this case, this is another way to report incidents. So this is using Power Apps to customize a SharePoint list with content types for incident reporting. So we get to decide, is it an incident, hazard, or positive interaction? And if I say it's an incident, I have control, I can see everything, but end users only see the main tab, and they're going to fill this out with their information. Was it witnessed? Who's the manager? And that'll find a manager from the organization that is responsible for the project, etc. So who was involved? What was the location? So all of the locations for the projects that it might be, all of that information, and they can decide from, and they went much deeper in, not just medical, time, slip, fall, but they really actually went detailed in the type of incidents that they wanted. Once this is submitted, it automatically sends to the contact manager a summary of this incident, and it CCs the safety team on that incident. When the manager comes in, the email they receive has a link to the preliminary investigation. And so they're going to come in here and they're going to start filling out more of this information to make sure that it fits and meets the needs. So was work safe? What are the sequence of events? What were the unsafe acts or conditions that contributed? And they'll complete this initial manager assessment. So once they save that management tab for the preliminary investigation, then safety will receive the summary report of the initial preliminary investigation and initial incident reporting. And safety will come in and look at what additional corrective actions they want to have done, who to assign it to, when they would like it to be complete. And they'll also come in after to say when it was actually complete and do they need to follow up on that. And yes, no for WorkSafe BC. So this is a full cycle incident report, and it actually has a dashboard that is only accessible by management that shows where everything is doing. And we just completed the development on this. So we've been doing a ton of testing, and it's rolling out to the organization starting next week for incident reporting. And what we're going to do after this is rolled out for incident reporting is we're actually going to start working on a new list for corrective actions. We're going to actually have it automate those corrective actions that they're assigning in the incident into a list. Yes, you can have multiple actions sent out by just the safety team, and you can have multiple actions sent out by the manager. You can also limit it to say only the safety team is going to do corrective actions and the manager is just providing notification or oversight. So that's a great question. Any other questions around this one? And then I'll show you something different. Okay. And so again, this is an actual real live. This is a training matrix. This training matrix is intended for a project-driven organization to make sure that required training has been done and to follow up on it. So in this case, it has a list of every single employee that they have, what their status is, what group they work in, and if they're an active employee. This piece here is special. We've created within this training requirements. So if I click on a position, it'll open a new tab and tell me that a project manager is required to do these certifications and optionally can choose to do these certifications. And all the certifications are color coded based on who owns them. So red for safety, management is gray, etc. So I can come in and I can see who is supposed to be doing what activities, and then I can actually come in here and see. We put a date in the original training. So this happens, a date gets added, and then if it's still valid, if it hasn't expired, if they don't need to redo it, then it's green because it's in the future, and if it's expired, it goes red. And we've done that for all of these trainings. Not every type of training for this organization does expire, but anything that does expire has a color coding. It'll also turn orange 30 days before it expires and send out an email to the training coordinator letting them know that they need to get that person to recertify if they in fact do need to recertify. We've actually also created a series of views to help with their auditing. So if they're asked to show who has first aid, they can just go to that Marine Advanced First Aid, and here's everybody, which group has it, and here's all the people who have a green, and here's anybody who has a red. Finally, we actually added to this. If I select a person, come on, there we go. They attach a scan of each of the actual certifications so that if it's required by a regulator during a core audit or other type of audit, it's absolutely attached to that employee at all times. In addition to the training matrix, we also have a competency matrix. These are things that aren't required by regulation or aren't necessarily training, but they are things that these guys want to know. Have you done your chainsaw safety? Did you do your aerial lift? Where are you at? And it follows the exact same principles based on what's been requested. Now, in addition to that, this organization also has a bi-monthly supervisor accountability. So basically, from the safety team, each supervisor is required to do a certain number of inspections, a certain number of ride-alongs, a certain number of activities. And we track their completion of we track the assignment of the activity and the completion of that activity within the SharePoint online environment. And on the 15th and last day of first day of the month, every month, a report goes out as a PDF format by email to all of the people, identifying what percentage did they achieve? Did you do 50% of your assigned accountability items, 100%, etc.? Does anybody have questions about that, or did that spark any scenarios you might have an idea about? I see John's typing.
Just posting some webinar details about recordings.
Perfect. Perfect. So there's a lot of these kinds of tools that you can actually leverage to really work your SharePoint online space and to get it to be a place that's really helpful to your team. In addition to just some of these straight up organizational pieces, you can also have in your SharePoint places for people to go within collaboration. So marketings and proposals as project-driven teams, these are also something that can be a huge part of your organization. So for example, in this case, I have the opportunity, so this client list has a list of all the clients that we're currently doing business with. Where are they? Who's the contact? Where's their head office? You know, whatever information that we have on them. Our proposal development tasks and proposal library and project profile library all request a client name, but that client name has to be pulled from this client list. In that way, we can make sure that a client isn't misunderstood. For example, Suncor with a capital S or Suncor with a small s. SharePoint will see those as two separate things. So by having it a lookup to a simple standard list, you make sure that if you ever do want to aggregate that data or get reporting for it, it's grouping things in the same place. So what we did to do that, to make this really simple, is we created this submit an RFI RFP. So this is, I think, I'm in the marketing team, I think we should look at bidding on this. I can put the link and the name of the RFP, and then I say the name of the client. Here I decide, is this a new or existing client? If I say it's a new client, the system will automatically add the name of that client to the client list and send an email to the clerk saying, please gather the contact information for this new client that has been added in. So it triggers that to happen so that it's all good. So I could say, I'm just going to grab a random URL. I'm going to say my market sector. In this case, it's buildings. It's submitted, requested by me. And I can provide a description and attach any of the information that I have beyond just the link to where the source for the RFI is. Once I save that, it's in the request list, and it's going to take a minute or two for the workflow to go. That is a completely automated workflow. So nobody has to do anything for it to create the client in the client list, but an email will come to the clerk saying, hey, fill this out. It'll also get an email saying, hey, somebody's just submitted this proposal. Do you want to approve a proposal development task? And if that gets approved, that proposal, here it is right there, can come into the system. So if I edit this one, this is an old test one, but I can actually add information in to this, and I can say what kind is it, a proposal, all of that sort of stuff. And I can have all of the information for the task around this, including my attachments and everything done in here. This then gets used as a go, no go. Do I want to do this? Am I ready to do that proposal? And my actual proposal, if I get a go from a no go, will create the proposal in here, give me access to see who's the client and all of the information about that client. When was it reviewed? Is it approved? What are our comments? What market sector? And again, I can use this to fully go through the proposal life cycle. Pardon me. And I can see all the versions of the file throughout its history. So here, this is 22 versions. I can see every time anything was changed. And if I want to, or I need to, I can actually restore it or view it as it was at that point in history. But even restoring number 19 won't delete the others. It'll just create a copy of 19 as number 23. So I have a lot of options and opportunities here to see my information in different ways. I can also create views like a calendar view. Go ahead, John.
I just have a question in the Q&A from Nita about
Yep.
do you have any master detail list in the site?
What do you mean by that? Master detail list? I mean, in my project dashboard, I do, and you can use lookups to see, to actually create very specific things. So for example, I do have a client that has a very detailed chart of accounts type thing that has to be set up for each project. And we basically have a workflow that will put all of that information out. Actually, let me show you this. This might be really helpful. So this is the SPOT competency system. So here, these are my competencies that I have completed for us. Now, I don't want you to get the wrong idea. As far as we're concerned, everybody that you hire is, of course, competent. But what this is about is how well do you know the way SPOT chooses to do these different tasks, right? So the forms you use and stuff like that. So if I want to if I've got a new employee, I can say submit a request for a new competency assignment. I say, Jessica, so I'm going to say Jessica developer. When do I want her to start? Which competency? So we have business analyst, agile project management, waterfall, developer, or sales. So I say developer, I look her up. And then if she's being assigned a mentor, I put that mentor in. When I hit send or save, that's actually going to send that's going to do a couple things. So these are all the different people who've had a competency assigned to them throughout our piece. So once that's been done, in the SPOT competency task list, there's actually there's a hidden, no, that's not where I want to go. There's a hidden matrix in the back end. And this, I think, comes to what you were talking about, a master list. So I have my competency matrix. This matrix has the type of competency, the phase, the title, a description of the task, a contact person. When I assign, for example, a developer competency, as that was our example, any task that has competencies type developer will automatically be moved and created inside. Oh, no. Inside this competency task tracking and assigned to that person. So all the tasks, there are 57 tasks. Go ahead, Jessica. You're muted.
Yeah, I was just waiting before you finish, but I want to also mention that one of the projects that I showed, the first one, also used a master list to get all the activities. So basically it's similar to this. When you have project and depending on the stages, okay, that activity belongs to this stage. So whenever the project is in that stage, it brings all this associated with a master list. So I just want to mention that it was part of the demo as well.
That's perfect. Yeah. So you can see here that the developer competency has 43 tasks. So as soon as I assign this to a person, or for example, if you assign it to a project, you could create a series of tasks based on the type of project, the industry of project, based on whatever criteria made sense to you. So I completed my 57 agile project management tasks. They got signed off. And some of them even will have attachments. So one of the last things we had here was, in some cases, we actually want you to complete a deliverable. We want you to complete a deliverable like fill out a burn down chart for an agile project management and show it. So typically we complete these tasks as we work on projects, and I can say upload my sample. And this is going to actually open a very simple Power App that's a competency tracking. And it's going to ask me, what was the task? Which certification was it for? Any comments, and attach my file. So really simple, but it uploads that to the competency tracking and allows that to be audited as part of the process. So that's an example where a master list is, and again, this is actively really in use by our organization. And then you can actually view all staff spot competencies if you want to look, because you're like, oh, I want to work with a particular person. Do they have the knowledge that I need in a particular area? Any other questions? Okay. Is there anything? I guess there's also onboarding. So this can be a fun one where you can actually create onboarding tasks. And I'm working currently with one of our clients to build an entire onboarding process that starts from before joining and ends with after 90 days. So this is our beginning of that process, but we're actually including things like getting them their user IDs and all of that as part of this workflow space and workflow place. All right, John, maybe I can hand this over to you a little bit. I think we're at the end of the presentation type and we're sort of in that Q&A space. If anybody has any questions, feel free, but otherwise I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, no, thanks everyone for joining. This is, definitely a topic that's come up quite a bit at Spot Solutions from my side of things, talking to companies from construction to oil and gas to the government side. And as we know from project-based companies, there's a lot out there. So today was an attempt to kind of go through those aspects of what we can do from a SharePoint adoption perspective. And I know a lot of people probably attending today would maybe have an existing software, or maybe you're kind of still working with, paper or Excel spreadsheets. But I think there's many ways that this particular platform can either integrate with what you have already, or obviously you can build out and automate existing processes. So it's been great. Thanks, Tamara and Jessica. This has been excellent. And from a recording perspective, I did post a little note there. You will have access to this recording, so I'll follow up with you on that as well. And then another good aspect would be we'll give you a chance to take an hour of our time if you would like, and we can dig into any questions you have outside of this webinar. So I'll reach out to you, provide you kind of an hour free with Spot Solutions to work with our analysts and see if there's anything we can do. If it's talking about master lists, if it's talking about certain areas of project management that we can help out with, we'd love to share an hour of our time and kind of see if there's something else we can do at Spot Solutions.
Okay, so love that question. A Power App can be used for people outside your organization, but I believe there are some licensing tools you'd need to do. You're more likely to use something like Power Pages, which is designed as something to communicate with completely external users. But if you have an external user that also has Office 365 and you've given them permission to use your space, then you may be able to allow them to use your Power App. Is there anything you need to do to publish that externally, Jessica?
You have to invite them to the company as a guest and assign a license to them so they can access the app.
So if they're a guest and they already have their own license, then they can leverage that license and you're okay. Most Power Apps don't require a license to use, but they do require a license to create. And some Power Apps, depending on their level of complexity, might require a premium license to create because they're using extra features or tools. you can connect with us. So how do you connect with us, John? Put our info in the thing.
Yeah, I will follow up you with the email for myself directly after this. So you have an access to speak with me and access, as I mentioned, to book some time with us. We can go through several different things you'd like to talk about. So you'll have my direct access following this webinar.
Tamilia, I see your hand up.
Sorry, thank you so much. I'm glad we can connect. Sorry, just a follow up to that same question about having it externally. I heard you mention Power Pages.
Mm-hmm.
Does that have all the functionality that you have on Power Apps too? Is that?
So Power Pages is a different application that allows you to create a public-facing website where you can pull from SharePoint, Power Apps, and Power Automate into it so that you can deliver that to an audience externally, but you can leverage your internal tools. Are there any limitations you're aware of on that for Power Pages, Jessica?
You need also licensing, special licensing for that, depending on the type of login you have with Power Pages. As an external, just sharing, or if they are actually interacting with the, like adding information, different kind of licenses. But yeah, those are have a license associated to it as well.
And Power Pages does a anonymous login license, which is how you can have the public come in without assigning them licenses. So that's there. Nita, that's a great question. So overcoming the 500 row limit in Power Apps. I think views are a part of that, but Jessica, I'll let you take this one because you know it much better than me.
So what was the question? Sorry.
How do you overcome a 500 row limit in Power Apps?
Well, depends. If you want to filter there is a lot of limitation when you are bringing information that is more than 5,000 items. But
so it is 5,000, not 500, right?
Sorry, 5,000. Yes, did I say 500? Yeah. 5,000.
No, they said 500, so I'm letting them know they're a bit lower than. It's 5,000 rows.
Okay, yes, it's 5,000. But basically, if you want to filter those views by any certain type of column that is not a text, you will have like a delegation limitation of them. But there is always work around it. I always kind of find these issues like, oh, I cannot filter by this date because it's not going to bring me all the information. There is a different workaround you can do to achieve, to show all the information that you need. So there is a limitation, yes, but there is a workaround through it.
And I think the Dataverse is helpful to
Yes.
do that.
Sometimes I will decide when to use SharePoint and when to use Dataverse. Like normally I'm not like, Dataverse has cost associated because you need to license every single user who is like accessing the data and entering data, and SharePoint is totally free. But yeah, like Dataverse has more, like you can do offline applications, like you don't have that kind of limitation. But like pros and cons, maybe this is another topic, but pros and cons between SharePoint and Dataverse. Sometimes it will depend. Like this case, we're more with SharePoint, but I would not worry about the limitation. I always find the way to bring all the information that I need. Even like maybe it is a little bit more into it, but I work in a project like this a few months ago that I had to bring information from the whole site, different libraries with different metadata, and they want to show documents, but it was more than 5,000 documents in each library. So there is one connector that you can use to bring all the information without any limitation. So there is always any free, same nothing licensed.
That's great. Any other questions? Oh, fair, Nida. I just wanted to make sure you knew it was 5,000, not 500, but that's an easy mistype.
Sometimes the 500, when you work in a like drop down, by default, it will bring you the first 500 items, but you can also like do more, like bring everything if you use the search. This is more
great.
technical answer, but yeah.
And we can talk about that down the road. Okay,
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much. John's going to reach out to everybody who attended today, and we look forward to future conversations and seeing how things, how we can provide you with some insight into some of these things. I'm sure John will let you know when the next webinar is coming out as well.
Yeah, thanks everyone. I appreciate your time.
Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Yeah, bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.